Hey, welcome back to Dealer Confidential, where we're pulling the curtain back on dealership transactions. And today we have a very interesting subject, topical subject, brokers. Good thing, bad thing? How does it impact dealership valuations? How does the OEM look at it? Is it, is it something you you want to do or not do, right? And Joe's going to tell us a lot about it from the dealer standpoint. I'll start, if I may. Or
Yes,
do you want do you have any letters from the crypt or
I
anything
do.
like that?
What started it was I got a letter from a dealer, and his question, and we're going to address it, is number one, it was two things. How do I know if this dealer has been brokering cars? And number two, how does it affect the P&L moving forward? And what happened? It was three really. What happens to me if I don't want to broker cars or the manufacturer comes down on us, which we're going to talk about. And all of a sudden 30 or 40%, as crazy as that might sound, of my profitability is gone overnight, instantly. So
Yeah.
that's the letter, and that's what really started today's discussions.
Yeah. All those are points that we'll talk about. I mean, the first thing I'd say is the impact on margins, right? Margin compression on a brokered deal. And the fact that the dealers that are doing it are not going to be as profitable on the front end, and then the F&I impact of that, and then the service impact of that. So it really comes down to me is who owns the customer, right? Not the dealership, the broker. The broker's in the middle of the dealer and the customer. And I would argue that the broker owns that relationship. And there's all kinds of ill consequences, profitability in the front, profitability in the F&I, profitability in the service lane, future profitability from owner loyalty standpoint. You don't even have the opportunity to build a relationship with where these cars are going, geographically dispersed, maybe even to a different country. And then you've got regulatory issues that you get in. The car doesn't work with the gas over there in those countries. I got into that when I was doing international stuff. You had to be careful about the petroleum that's offered in these countries, and also the regulatory environment, right? So all kinds of bad things can happen.
And
You know,
the question that we have is on the buyer side, because obviously we're going to concentrate probably on that today. On the buyer side, how does that affect me as the buyer? And how do I really source out all of this, all these details? Do I do it obviously in due diligence? But I got to tell you honestly, some of these guys, some of these dealers have gotten very good at paper trails. They do that because not all, I should say, most of the manufacturers look down upon car brokers negatively for a bunch of different reasons. And I have to admit, I was a prime violator of it.
offender.
Yeah, I was bad. I broke the law, and the law did win because I was fined dramatically. And I was shipping a very high line cars, and you can figure that out, overseas, primarily to Russia, India, and all those countries. And I was shipping them through a broker, and we were making a lot of money. But as you said, Hal, we were losing everything else. All we were doing was making, back end money.
Can you
Manufacturers.
sell chargeback?
Oh, yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about that. And it got and I didn't do it out of trying to do something against the manufacturer. I almost half did it because the manufacturer came to us and said, listen, we have a production problem. And the production problem was just the opposite. The production problem is that we had too much production in a specific super highline vehicle, and they could not sell them fast enough, and they were sitting. So they came to me and one other dealer in the United States, and they said, please see if you can move these cars for us. And I did. And it didn't turn out well for anybody. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Joe, what are your thoughts? Let's bring this all around to the dealer level.
Yeah. Boy, this is a real interesting soup with a lot of ingredients because there's a lot of it sounds simple and it is in terms of it's what it is, but to Hal's point and your point, the complexities behind the curtain are tremendous. Let's start with a buyer. I mean, listen, most buyers, even if they do diligence, may still not find the rabbit hole of the fact that the guy's doing those type of deals. He has to be astute to the market and put his ear to the table to see what's going on. Because to your point, Greg, and I can speak for myself, and I was always against broker deals because I think it hurts the industry, to Hal's point, and in its entirety. So I really didn't do it in my career. I fought against it because of that. But the problem is the paperwork trail is so perfect now. It's practically impossible for the so the manufacturer says, you know what, I'm going to audit 200 deals. Okay, pull these the numbers. You pull the deals, they do an audit, everything's perfect. Application, driver's license, all the correct forms are signed. Everything, incentive forms, proof of registration, all the good stuff. It's all in there. So the manufacturer, from a legal standpoint, can't say, I'm going to fine you because you're missing, Ticonderoga number 2 pencil. No, it doesn't work that way. So they have everything lined up.
Wait, I'm a factory guy. Okay. So how do you do that? I mean, in the old days, and I'm old, so I remember those. We do a reconciliation, right? And there would be like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and oh, wait a minute, you brokered those 3 because Mickey Mouse didn't buy the car. But Joe, how are they doing? How you do that? I really want to know. I don't know.
So here's what's happening. And I speak because I know a couple of guys many of the guys that I know that are doing it. What's happening is, so these brokers are, to your point, Al, have an extraordinary relationship with the consumer. They know exactly. They're like miniature. They're like, I should say, mirror F&I guys. So they know exactly the F&I process. And we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast about F&I, how important and critical it is to watch that department because that's where all the action is, right? So these guys mirror an F&I guy, and they know exactly all the proper documents that need to be had and need to be signed and given to the dealership. So what they do is when they speak to the consumer, they're telling the consumer, hey, they're prepping them for what to have, what to bring, what's necessary in order for them to obtain the deal that they're going to get. Certain key incentives, they have to have all that lined up, and they do a better job in the dealership. So they package everything up properly. They bring it to the dealership and say, hey, you know what? I got a guy who's looking for a RAV4. I shopped around. What can you do? You know what? I'm going to give you, we'll do 1,000 behind invoice because there's a little kickback from the factory. Okay. Make the deal, sign them up. Customer signs up. They barely make it to the box half the time because there's no F&I sell very little to be sold because many times the customer just wants the payment, wants the car, end of story. Now here's what happens.
So the broker's actually representing the ultimate buyer in the deal, basically.
Correct.
And has all the right juice, all the backup stuff that he needs to actually.
They're getting everything lined up, everything
tricky.
It's necessary to make the deal go smooth and fast because 99% of the time they're spotting the car.
Yeah, of course.
So they want the car the same day delivery. And in order to achieve that, you got to get the application in early, got to send all the insurance documents ahead of time, et cetera. So that they have this down to a science. Now, what they've gotten smart about, and the dealers also, usually what happens when you do audit the deal, it says, oh, look, there's a check here for a referral fee or a bird dog, as we call it in our industry. And there's a referral fee for $500 to ABC Leasing. So what's happened now is these guys are getting sharper and saying, you know what? The dealers are saying, listen, I can't have that check in there because it's going to expose me. Okay. So now what they do is they tell the customer, look, your COD is $2,000. You're only going to get $1,500 because the other $500 comes to me. So now either they do it that way or they actually charge the customer an actual fee for processing the deal, which most customers gladly pay, which is crazy.
Yeah. To get out of the hassle of going to the dentist office, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So now you have a fast deal. It's seamless in terms of paperwork. There's no trail to say I pay Greg a bird dog for $500 from ABC Leasing. So now the customer's paying Larry directly. So from a audit standpoint, whether it's the state, whether it's the manufacturer, it's almost impossible to really be able to stop the process.
Yeah. Okay. Let's bring this back to how does it affect, and I'm only concerned with the buyer right now, the buyer of the franchise. How does it affect the buyer of the franchise? As Cal, you mentioned before, it affects the obvious is there's no customer there. There's no service customer. There's probably no real good reporting customer. There's no good recommendation customer. And there is no good Google response with a positive experience at the dealership. None of that exists. But let me go one step further. And this is the big problem that I'm seeing nowadays. Because of the tariffs that have been put in place, it is a whole new, and this goes back to my days, the retail side, a whole new group of brokers are coming about because now they're beating the tariffs that our government has set up for American cars, export and import of these luxury cars. So what they're doing is we're importing these luxury cars and then we're selling them back to these same countries with the tariff situation. Now, the way they beat it, this is classic. The way they beat it is, we said it before, they buy the car, they register the car, they plate the car, and they change the CO, now becomes a used vehicle. Now, 90%, Hal, and you're the expert at this, and tell us about this a little bit. 90% of these countries do not accept a American CO as the title of the vehicle. When they get there, they do their own title from that country that exists, and that all of a sudden that used vehicle turns into a new vehicle again, or however. So, Hal, could you address that? Because I know you are all over the world with this kind of stuff.
Doesn't mean it's just a used car with no miles on it. Might as well be a new car, right? I mean, you've got price disequilibrium in these markets. You've got, take a Jeep or a Cherokee or whatever in Nigeria, and they're selling for $80,000 in Nigeria, but we're bringing them in at 50, and it's the same vehicle, right? Because of the pricing disequilibrium in the marketplaces, and the brokers can sell it they can make 20 grand a pop, bringing them in as a used no mileage car. Right.
What did Ford? What did Ford do? Because I know you were heading up Ford at that time. What did Ford do to handle this? Like you said, they turned the other cheek because they were moving inventory.
They can terminate you. I mean, in the most severe case, they can terminate you. It is frowned upon. They can fine you. They can charge you back all the incentives. They can cut your allocation. You think of any bad thing that could happen to you from a factory standpoint, and they've thought of it and done it, as a matter of fact. So yeah, that's a no-no. I was going to get back to your bit, how would a buyer, I mean, in Joe's example, he's now explained to me how it would be hard to track it, but back to the old days where you would do the spread on the vehicles, you do 200 and you'd see 50 of them went to ABC Leasing, and you'd say, well, you got a customer concentration problem, right? Out of your sales last year, 37% went to ABC Leasing. I mean, there's risk. What if ABC Leasing goes away, or there's a relationship there with you and not me? I mean, how do I sustain that? I'm not going to buy it, or I'm going to significantly lower the price because of the risk associated with, customer concentration. In Joe's example, just a minute ago, hell, I'd have a hard time spreading it and being able to find it.
So
even though it exists.
That's the key.
There is a way that the buyer can observe and get some red light signals that'll indicate that there's a problem. And I'll tell you two right off the bat. One is, what is your retention report? So you look at the retention, you're looking at the off-lease cars that are coming in your portfolio. So if I'm buying a store and I'm buying, let's say, a Nissan store, and the guy says, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing about 70% leasing. Oh, really? How long? Well, I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years. Really interesting. That's okay. So now what I do is I look at the retention report for the past 3 years, and that tells me then whether that customer's coming back or not. Also, you can do it by geography, right? Because if you're brokering cars to Delaware and Poughkeepsie, New York, and Suffolk County, New York, and I'm here in New Jersey in Bergen County, the customer's never coming back. So to your point, the broker's controlling the deal. So that's one way to run reports of that nature to tell you. Also, you run a service report, run it by VIN. The systems can do it.
Right.
And it'll tell you how many of these customers that I sold cars have been here for the first oil change or for any service. And if you say, we've got a service penetration on the new cars about 31%, an immediate red flag. So there are ways that again, us three, we've been around and being good operators. These are the things and that we bring to the table to the guys who are looking at dealers, that we can dig further and smarter than just taking something at face value. Because on the financials shows a guy selling 150 cars like clockwork, which 70 are going to brokers. And to Hal's point, when I started in the business, I started in 1986. I remember doing leases by hand. We didn't even have computers. Everything was done by hand. And the leasing companies back then were buying cars, the banking laws have changed. So back then they were able to lease the cars to the customers. So we sold the cars to ABC Leasing. So House Point, if Nissan came in and ordered me and said, Otto, what are you doing here? You're selling 150 cars and you're average about 70 cars to ABC Leasing. Who's ABC Leasing? So back then it was very easy to catch.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
very, and you got to do this extra homework that I'm talking about. And the last one is Google reviews to see how many of those customers
Right.
gave you reviews.
Hey, Hal,
Well,
how do you
one
handle
last,
that
let me dovetail mine.
from the seller side?
Hold on. Hold on. Sales effectiveness too, Joe.
Yes.
You mentioned service. So
Yeah.
you might say, oh, look at my financial statement. I'm selling, 500 vehicles. But when they do a sales effectiveness, they take out the ones that are not sold in your assigned area.
Right.
So you may have like a 50% sales effectiveness when the numbers would suggest that you're at 100%. Because
Some of
half of them are going outside of your market.
Yeah, some of these manufacturers have incredible throughput reports. I
Yeah.
mean, they get really finite
Oh, no. Yeah.
if you ask them for it.
Yeah,
The
Sometimes they
broker
have-
police. Yeah. The broker police is active.
they can give you, again, if I'm a buyer, I'm going to ask the manufacturer, hey, would you provide, I create my own report and say, this is what I'm looking for and this is why. And then they'll give it to you and you can do your diligence to make sure that, that you're not, that this dealer's not playing hanky panky,
I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead, please.
No, finish your thought, Hal, because I think
No, that was
Jump
the
up.
sales effectiveness thought was, he's mentioned service expectancy, but there's a sales effectiveness too. And you get in trouble with the OEM when you're not sales effective. And that means you're working on somebody else's market and not your own.
that's right. The other thing about the OEM, and Hal, you and I have been there, how many years? Jesus, a lot. From the OEM standpoint, and this is from the buy side, okay? Once the OEM finds out about this, because it may have been hidden, who knows, all of a sudden there's a risk that new buyer, his allocation may dramatically be affected from the manufacturer. Because
Absolutely.
in fact, as Joe said, and how you did too, the manufacturer wants to know that these are vehicles in operation. We want to know that they're being serviced. They want to know that we're going to have retained customers, and they want to know that they're coming back. None of that's going to happen from a broker deal. All of a sudden, manufacturer says, well, you had 150 new allocated vehicles a month. 50 of them last month or 2 months ago, whatever, we can't track. They were to brokers, and we have no retained ownership of these vehicles. So we're going to lower your allocation to 100 cars. Now, as a buyer, that is the kiss of death because you have built your whole P&L, your whole 3-year marketing plan and everything else based on that 100, I'm using that as a number, 150 units a month that will be allocated to you, various models. If you go from the manufacturer down to 100 units, two things happen. You either have to find those 50 units somewhere else in the country, which is not unheard of. We all truck vehicles in from other states and the South and the Midwest and everything. Or your P&L just went to you know what. It's out the window. Run from this dealership. Do not stay there. Do not submit that LOI because you're not going to end up making ends meet because all the dealers' financial statements are wrong. They may be good for him, but they're not going to be good for you. Hal?
Correct.
Yeah. No, right. You got to be careful too when you bring those cars in because you lose the holdback unless you negotiate the holdback
Or incentives.
to keep you competitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Look, sale without a customer relationship is not a sale. That's at
Great.
the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. You really want to own a customer. And to do that, you got to run it through the regular channel, the dealership channel, the F&I department, introduction to the sales department, introduction to the parts department. And that's where you get the one sale ends up being 10 because they tell everybody in the family and you renew them. They buy 5 or 6, 7 cars from you during a life.
Well, we're at our end. God, we did no shameless plugs. Now we do shameless plugs. Here goes. We've had a really good return on LinkedIn. I'm very, very pleased with that. But we need you. DealerConfidentialPodcast.com. Get on there. You see all the old podcasts. On there, there's also a very important section about sponsorship. We've had a number of our number one manufacturers, not lease company. I don't mean it that way. F&I companies and a few other companies come to us wanting to be principal sponsors on the show. And we're talking to all of them. And it's great. If you have an interest in being on the show, number one, in sponsoring episodes, please go to the website, dealer-confidentialpodcast.com. You could also go to dealer-confidential.com, and that's our official website. We just finished our new dealer letter, Hal's letter, and we could start sending that out probably tomorrow. So get on the websites, log in, like us on YouTube. Gotta like us on YouTube. Become one of our sponsors, not sponsors, but subscribers on YouTube. And let's make this thing work for all of us, because it's our passion to make sure that the deals are good.
Yeah, and there's nothing that stops you from putting a comment on LinkedIn about, hey, you want us to talk about a future subject. We'll bring it into this forum.
Absolutely. Take a look. Look, we're really very excited about, the number of people. I mean, literally, we're getting thousands and thousands of likes, especially on LinkedIn, about the thing. We go to 2 million automotive professionals every week. That's who we're hitting. So it's exciting. So please sign up, give us your email address, or give us a call. Our telephone numbers are all over the place. We'd love to help you, not only with the podcast, but we have dealerships available to buy. Hal has a bunch of them. I have
not enough. I don't have enough, actually. So if you're a seller, I'll take your call too.
Yeah, but I have too many buyers, way too many buyers.
There are more buyers than sellers.
We can't satisfy them. We're going to try. It's crazy right now. So please don't hesitate. I think it's only going to get worse as the warmer season steps in and everything. Hopefully, Hal, you'll come up with some deals for us so that we can sell these dealerships.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
And we can buy these dealerships.
Yeah.
That's it, guys. We get through everything. Shameless plugs. Come on. We would love to have you part of our family. You got to see Hal's new newsletter. It's fabulous. Send us your information. We'll send that out to you. I'll become part of our family. And Joe, closing statement?
Yeah, I think the one final thing that I just heard of, it's been in the works, but it's going to come in. One of the ways that the manufacturers are going to start cracking down on this is that there's going to be, the last comment is that most brokers will say, well, the manufacturer needs to hit their quota. The dealer needs to hit their quota. So we got to get rid of these cars. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's step programs, et cetera. There's a lot of truth to that. So the way they're going to get around it and also put pressure on dealers and pressure on everything is they're going to tie these programs now to other elements of the dealership. So for example, let me use Cadillac as an example. Cadillac has a program called Pinnacle. Okay. So that's the back end money. In order for you to get Pinnacle now, you're going to have to hit a lot of different targets. So even if you got incentive money on a model, it doesn't matter. You have to hit all the service targets, all the CSI targets. And so the money's going to be tied into a bucket. And if you don't hit that bucket, so it's not as easy as bringing Mrs. Smith in for a quick sale and letting her go, bye-bye. And there's a lot more to that. So that's coming down the pipeline. I think you're going to see a lot more of that and pressure to the dealers to make sure that they're playing all the right way.
Hal, sum it up for us, and I'll tell you what we're doing next week.
You can't spell brokering without going broke. That's I don't know how I thought of that.
You just pulled that right out of thin air.
That's phenomenal. That was great.
Love it. Okay, next week's show is going to be on F&I. F&I is critical. We've talked about this many times. We're going to have a very, very important F&I expert. And how does this relate back to the buy and sell? We'll be talking about that because the F&I, as you know, is a generator of income for the dealership. And what happens to the contracts that the selling dealer has in place? Are you obligated by those? Are you obligated by any of the IT contracts? Are you obligated by all of the services that even the manufacturer offered? Are you obligated to take those? That's next week's discussion. It's going to be a good one. So please come join us, dealerconfidentialpodcast.com. And you got to see Hal's newsletter this week. Okay.
Man,
bye, everybody.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.